Nate, let's turn gears a little bit and shift our eyes to the opposing person in the garage,
The
being
person
Sergio
who's not
Perez.
pushing him for those
Yeah.
wins.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We need somebody to push him, and it was his teammate Sergio Perez early on in the season, but
Yeah.
of course that has fallen off in the last couple of weeks. So, why do you feel like Sergio Perez continues to struggle, especially when it comes to qualifying?
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because it feels like he's in a downward spiral. And I think that it's very telling to me that Christian Horner has now, on multiple occasions, I think he said it after the last race, and he said it again at the weekend. He said Sergio's going to stop thinking about the championship and go race by race. So clearly, the feeling within Red Bull is that Sergio's getting himself worked up about the championship. He obviously had a very good start to the season. I think coming into Miami, I think people were starting to think, well, maybe Checo can kind of string this out for a little bit. Then obviously that was a really deflating defeat for him. Obviously, he was out ahead. Max was starting so far back, and then three straight qualifyings. And we see this with great drivers when they're against good drivers. It's very easy to suddenly for the good driver who's still very very talented in their own right to kind of get into this spiral because you know Checo made the mistake in Monaco, and that almost entirely writes off your chances of having a good weekend there. So immediately he had that after Miami. Spain, again, you're pushing a bit too hard. He's thinking, I've got to make up lost ground. You make a mistake again. So you're constantly having to kind of almost push harder to make up for the mistake that you just made. But the mistake you just made was to make up for a mistake you made before that. So I think that there is something to that with Christian. He does. Perez probably needs to look at it and just completely reset. They're coming to Red Bull's home race now. But it's bizarre as well because I think Checo's. I don't think he's been as strong a qualifier as Verstappen since he's been at Red Bull. But I always kind of had him down as somebody who was fairly strong in qualifying. And the fact that there's been three in a row, I think they've all been very different. But it just shows you a driver who's maybe not quite there with confidence. Who I think he was. You could argue that obviously Monaco was just a straight up mistake, but the way the rain fell in Canada at the weekend, it could have caught other drivers out. But the fact it didn't catch Max out, you've got to give Max credit there as well. So I don't know. It seems I think we're in another Bottas 2.0 situation, really, where you've got a very good driver who, and I made this point as well to another journalist. If you're Sergio Perez, you've spent 10 years. You waited 9 years for your first F1 race win. That whole time you never had a car that could take you to race wins. The race win you got was an incredible victory, incredible drive on your part. You suddenly step up to Red Bull. You suddenly have a car that's tantalizingly close to the championship. And in the first year, you're not really in the fight, but Max is, and you think, right, after year two, I'll get him. Year two, you don't get him. Year three, the car's even better. It's possibly the best car Sergio Perez is ever going to drive, and he's falling short as well. So that, on top of the championship, it just must be a lot for him to take because he knows that these opportunities don't just come to you every year. If you don't utilize them, they can fall through your fingertips. So I think there's a lot of things going on there. And I think just for the sake of the championship, but also for the sake of Checo, I feel like the next race win it would just be very good if it was him who won it.
With all that said, Lawrence, do you feel like it's more of Sergio Perez isn't the driver up to task, or this is just how difficult it is being Max Verstappen's teammate, or a little bit of both?
It's a bit of both, I think. I mean, we've seen Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon, to some extent Daniel Ricciardo, struggle as Max Verstappen's teammate. And we see it a lot when there is one of these generational talents in the car and other drivers have to go up against them. We saw it with Bottas, we saw it with Barrichello at Schumacher, although really it was more weighted towards Schumacher. It was within contracts that he was going to basically win the championship if there was an opportunity. So, it's a tricky position to be in, but I think, Checo is struggling to deal with it. Because remember, all these drivers gone through their whole life pretty much believing that they are the best driver in the world and that they can win a world championship when they have the car. And then when you get given that opportunity, as Nate was just saying, and you don't do it, it is quite a knock to the confidence and trying to get your head around that and reset yourself. All the while, the person in the other car is setting lap times that you cannot compete with and doing things which are very special with the car. And then you have this thing in all successful teams that naturally they do tend to gravitate around the person that's going to do the best. So in terms of car updates, the team will always do what the data tells them. So they'll always do what the wind tunnel's saying in terms of, how do we put more downforce on the car? But then there's also the drivability element, and if the drivers cannot realize that downforce in an actual racing situation, then it's actually pretty pointless. But with Max, it seems like he can drive a car even when it's really, really loose at the rear, and just make things happen in a car that perhaps any other driver gets in and struggles with. And so if Red Bull have found more and more performance, but it's a car that is quite difficult to drive, then it's only going to go that way. Now, I think that was more the case last year than this year. This year, the car seems quite benign and well balanced, which is one of the reasons why they are so far ahead. But Checo's, he's going to be very disappointed, because if you look specifically at his issues, it's often been the same thing. It's under braking is where he's really lacking to Max, and he'll be able to see that in the data, and he'll be able to see where Max is braking, and he'll probably go out in a practice lap, try that, realize how difficult it is to do, and then just come back in and think, how on earth do I match that? And then that led to a mistake in Australia qualifying. It's led to a mistake in Monaco qualifying, and it led to a mistake in Spain. All kind of issues which started in the braking phase and then ended up either in the barrier or a gravel trap. So that's what he's up against, but there's no easy way to find a way out of it, especially if the raw natural talent is biased in one way, and I just don't really see a way that Checo turns that around immediately. If you look back at times when that has kind of been the case, and a driver who's perhaps not as talented has gone on to win. The most recent and obvious example is Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton, but that had to get quite nasty. And also Nico was on a good level in that championship, but it required a lot of bad luck for Lewis early in the year. Nico to take advantage, pile the pressure on, and then it got quite nasty between the two of them for him to go and win a championship. Checo already, that part of the season has gone, that opportunity has gone. Max has already got enough points in the bank that even if things go wrong for him for 2 or 3 races, you'd still put your money on him to win the championship. So I can't see a way back into it for Checo other than trying to reset, just trying to learn, trying to develop, and then having another go next year in his final contract year.
I was going to say, I don't think there's that much bad luck Max Verstappen could be stuck with moving forward to not win the championship this season.
It would need to be quite historic levels of bad luck, you would think.
Yeah. And I just can't wrap my head around or foresee that happening.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content plus live streaming, make sure to subscribe to ESPN Player.